Okay, hi everyone. I'm here with your 412 lesson. Your 412 lesson is titled How Does It Grow? Seeing Growth in Different Representations. In lesson 4.1.1, you looked at 4 different ways of representing patterns and began to find connections between them. Throughout this chapter, you will explore connections between and find efficient ways to move from one type of representation to another. Today, you will look for specific connections between geometric patterns and equations. As you work, keep these questions in mind. How can you see growth in the rule? How do you know your rule is correct? How does the representation tell you? What are the connections between the representations? At the end of this lesson, put your work from today in a safe place. You will need it to use it during lesson 413. So that's very important that you put this work in a safe place, which is in your binder. So we're going to start with question 413. If you look at question 413, it says, for each of the patterns below, answer questions A through D from problem 412. Use color to shade in new tiles of each pattern on your resource page. Choose one color for the new tiles in part A and a different color for the new tiles in part B. So, the questions from 412. A says, what do you notice? After everyone had a moment to examine the figures independently, discuss what you see with your team. So you have to answer questions A through D. So for 313, tile pattern A, you'll answer question A from 412. Part B says, sketch the next figure in the sequence, figure 4, on your resource page. Sketch figure 0, which is the figure that comes before figure 1. So now you'll take out your resource page, and you are on tile pattern 2. So on your resource page, tile pattern 2, you're going to sketch figure 0 and figure 4. Then question C says, how is the tile pattern growing? Where are the tiles being added with each figure? On your resource page, use a marker or colored pencil to color in the new tiles on each figure. So you're going to go back to your resource page, and you're going to color in the new tiles on each figure with a marker or colored pencil. I recommend a crayon or colored pencil. It'll be easier. Part D says, what would figure 100 look like? Describe it in words. How many tiles would be in the 100th figure? Find as many ways as you can to justify your conclusion. Be prepared to report back to the class with your team's findings and methods. So then you'll answer part D for tile pattern number 2. Notice how part D says, find as many ways as you can. Okay, you really need to think about that, because is it practical to draw figure 100 for every single tile pattern? Is it practical to draw a graph? Okay, so you really need to think about the practical ways that you can figure out how many tiles are in figure 100. So go ahead and pause the video and do tile pattern number 2, which is part A for 413. Okay, if you're back with me, that means you have answered the questions A, B, and C for tile pattern number 2. You're now going to do the same thing for tile pattern number 3, so go ahead and pause the video and do tile pattern number 3. If you're back with me, you have figured out tile pattern number 3. We're going to move on to question 414 now. Putting it together. Look back at the 3 tile patterns in problems 412 and 413. You did not do 412, so you are just going to talk about the 2 tile patterns that you did in problem 413. To answer the following questions. When you compare these 3 patterns, what is the same and what is different? Explain in a few sentences. So go ahead and pause the video and explain. If you're back with me, we are going to talk about problem 414. So we're just going to say a couple things that are the same. So hopefully you noticed something that the same for all these tile patterns is that they are growing by the same number of tiles. And go ahead, and if you have not figured out what that number is, go ahead and figure it out, and we'll talk about that part in class. Something that's different is the number of tiles in figure 0. Okay, and you might have noticed some other things that were different, but this, you will see why that difference is very important. We're going to move on to part B. It says find an equation, which is a rule, for the number of tiles in each pattern. Label each tile pattern on your resource page with its rule. So you're back to the resource page now. You're going to be writing your rules underneath where it says pattern number. So go ahead and do your rules for tile pattern 2 and 3. If you're back with me, that means you have answered part B. Part C says, what connections do you see between your equations and the tile pattern? Show and explain these connections. Go ahead and pause the video and answer that. If you're back with me, we're on D now. Imagine that the team next to you created a new tile pattern that grows in the same way as the ones you have just worked with, but they refuse to show it to you. What other information would you need to be able to predict the number of tiles in figure 100? Explain your reasoning. Go ahead and pause the video and answer this question as well. If you're back with me, we're on problem 415. It says consider tile pattern number 4 shown below. Draw figures 0 and 4 on the resource page. Part B says, find an equation or a rule for the number of tiles in the pattern. On the resource page, label tile pattern number 4 with its rule, then use a new color to show where the numbers in your rule appear in the tile pattern. So you'll kind of do the same thing that you've been doing. Part C says, what is the same about this pattern in tile pattern number 3? What is different? What do the similarities and differences look like in the tile pattern in the equation? And part D says, how is this number of tiles by which the pattern increases each time you move from one figure to the next figure in the sequence represented in each equation? So you're going to finish problem 415, and this is something that we are going to save and talk about in class. So remember, when you're done with this, you need to put it in a safe place because when you come back to class, we're going to go over it and we're going to need it for 413. So if you have any questions, as always, please email us.